Hey guys, American Pizza Books here. So this is going to be kind of a different video. This is going to be more of a discussion video, kind of. This is a topic that I've seen a few people bring up about two very well-known authors, and that is, as you can tell from the title above, that is, or below, whichever. It's Stephen King and Dean Koontz. So I've seen like message boards and everything, and you know, when people do their collections, their book collections or whatever, you know, it seems like some people compare the two authors, you know, between Stephen King and Dean Koontz. And, you know, as someone who has read both authors and does still read both authors, and you know, gets enjoyment out of both authors, I'm kind of interested in this topic, and I feel like I kind of would make a video talking about it, because I don't know if anyone else has really done a video discussing this topic, but yeah, you know, I've even seen people go as far as to say that, like, Dean Koontz is like a poor man's version of Stephen King, which I mean, it's, you know, I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion, so if that's their opinion, that's fine. You know, I disagree. You know, I think that they're two very different authors. You know, both. Because Stephen King, he's most well known for his horror stuff, like It, The Shining, Misery, Salem's Lot, you know, books like that. But he's really a very dynamic author. I mean, you know, his short stories, the horror stories, you know, like Nightmares and Dreamscapes and Night Shift and stuff like that. But I feel like he's a very dynamic author. You know, he doesn't just write horror, even though that's what he's most known for. You know, he's kind of dived into, you know, like science fiction a little bit with Under the Dome, crime fiction with the Mr. Mercedes trilogy, suspense, you know, fantasy. I mean, that's kind of how I would describe the Dark Tower series. It's basically like fantasy, even though the Dark Tower series, I feel like it's kind of just a mishmash of genres, in my opinion. But I'd say, yeah, fantasy, you know, in the case with the Dark Tower. Even a little bit of romance with Rose Madder, the novel Rose Madder. And just, you know, you get the point. You know, I feel like King he's probably the more dynamic author of the two. Because, again, I do feel like he's written in such a wide array of genres, even though he's most known for writing, you know, the horror novels and his works of horror and stuff like that. Whereas Dean Koontz, his books, like, from what I've read of his books, they all kind of have a similar formula, I guess. I mean, I will admit I've read more of Stephen King than I have of Dean Koontz. I haven't read a ton of Dean Koontz yet. I plan to, you know, read more of his works, obviously. But just from what I've read, it seems like his books, they're not all alike. Like, they're all different, you know, they're all different enough, you know, but I feel like there's still kind of a similarity with a lot of his books and everything. And I feel like, because he started out as a science fiction writer, but he kind of worked his way into becoming more well known as a thriller writer and everything, and I feel like that's sort of the genre that he sticks to, is like thriller and suspense. Although I do feel like at times there is some, you know, there's some science fiction sprinkled on there, you know, as well as maybe some horror every once in a while sprinkled in there. But for the most part, I feel like most of Koontz's works are, you know, really stick to the thriller or suspense genre. Which isn't a bad thing, you know, it's not a bad thing. I mean, he's done pretty well at it, and he's been pretty successful at it, obviously. So, yeah, I feel like they're two very different authors as far as that's concerned. I mean, as far as notoriety and just, like name recognition, I feel like Stephen King might be more well-known, like, more... Like, if you go up to someone and you say the name Stephen King, I mean, they'll probably recognize it because, I mean, King is obviously, I mean, he's got a lot of books, a lot of pretty well-known works like It, you know, Salem's Lot. And he's also had a lot of movie adaptations, which some have been pretty good, some have been decent, some not so much. But, you know, he's had a lot of movies and everything as well. Whereas Koontz, I feel like Dean Koontz is fairly well known, but I feel like there might be like if you just mentioned his name, like, oh yeah, you know, the Dean Koontz guy, or you know, the Dean Koontz, you know, you read Dean Koontz. I don't feel like everyone will recognize him right off the bat. Maybe they would, I don't know, but like I feel like just in terms of notoriety, Stephen King might be a little more well known, maybe a little bit, and that's not knocking Dean Koontz at all, you know, but that's, you know, that's kind of what I see. But yeah, and then movies is another thing, because I know some of Dean Koontz's books have been adapted into movies. Like I know Phantoms was, and I haven't seen any of the adaptations, but I know Demon Seed was adapted. I think that was his first book to movie adaptation, was Demon Seed, the original version of Demon Seed in the 70s. You know, Phantoms was a movie, like Watchers was adapted into a movie, although I don't think the movie was nearly as good as the book. I haven't read the book yet, but I know that a lot of people think the movie is nowhere near as good as the book. I know the movie kind of changes up a lot of things, so... But, and I know that he's had a few other adaptations from his books, but none of them have really, you know, none of them have really done real well. Whereas King, you know, he's had, like, you know, there's the Shawshank Redemption, which is obviously a great, in my opinion, it's a great movie. I know a lot of people really love that movie, and it's a big movie with an incredible cast. You know, you've got Shawshank Redemption, you know, Misery, the movie It this past year, you know, that got a lot of attention. I mean, so in terms of like movie adaptations, you know, King definitely is probably more well known and probably has the upper hand as far as that's concerned. But I also feel like, and I want to make, in this video, I'm not trying to say exactly that one is better than the other, because again, I feel like they are very two different authors, but you know, but like in terms of like just the overall tone and feel of King's books and Koontz's books, I feel like the overall tone and just the vibe that you get from them, and I don't know, just I feel like that's really different too. I don't really know how to explain it, but yeah, that's all I really I could say is that, you know, I wish I had a more, you know, in-depth way to explain that, but that's all. I mean, that's all I really can say. You know, the tone of the books of the two authors are very just, they feel different, at least to me. You know, so yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so yeah, just the tone. The characters, like the characters that Dean Koontz, I feel like there's more. I mean, there's humor in both you know, authors' works, you know, but I feel like and I feel like both of the authors' works can get pretty dark too. But I feel like Koontz's works might have a little more humor to them than King's works, maybe. That's kind of stretching it a little bit, but because like I said, you know, Stephen King definitely has a lot of humor in some of his books too, even though they're not comedies, you know, they still got humor, but I feel like Koontz uses the humor a little bit more in his books at times, so yeah. And then, you know, King is obviously, he's a decorated author. I mean, he's won a shit ton of awards. I mean, just shit ton of awards for his writing. I want to say Dean Koontz, I want to say he has won some awards for some of his writings, at least. I want to say can't really name. I know like King has won like the Bram Stoker Award, O. Henry Award, all kinds of awards for his writings. I want to say Dean Koontz has too. Although I think that this might be the point that Stephen King might have the upper hand on, and in that King, he has a lot of books. I mean, he's written a lot of books. Don't get me wrong. Like, he's written a lot of books. But like with King, I feel like his books, he takes more time on each. Not that Koontz doesn't, but like King takes more time on his individual books, because I mean, Koontz, if you've pulled up a list of all that Koontz has wrote, he has written a lot. He's written a lot of books. Like a lot of books. I think there's even been years where he writes like 2 or 3 books in one year. So I mean, whereas King, I don't even know if King has actually done that. Like he may have. Maybe I just don't know it. Maybe he has written like, you know, multiple books in one year, but I don't know if he has or not. I mean, I don't know. I feel like King puts a little more time into each individual book or short story compilation, whereas Koontz, he's not. I mean, he's not as bad as James Patterson or anything, but like he definitely some books haven't simmered enough and everything, and haven't really, you know, where he's kind of just writing books, you know, and writing multiple a year, and it kind of shows sometimes in the works. But of course, you know, both authors have some, you know, stinkers, you know, in terms of books. You know, I mean, you know, I've read a few books from both authors that I haven't really enjoyed, you know, but I mean, I feel like in that regard, you know, King might have the upper hand, and that he focuses on each book individually. He puts a little more time into each individual book, so because of that, there might be a little more quality about it. Not that Koontz's books aren't quality, but, you know, and because of that, each individual Stephen King book gets a little bit more attention. So, but yeah, like I know this year, I think this year even, like his new series that he's been working on, the Jane Hawk series, I think that was it The Silent Corner was the first book, because I got it at Kroger. That one came out not this year, but 2017, just the past year. And then I think The Whispering Room came out in the same year, I want to say. Correct me if I'm wrong, don't quote me on that, but I believe that that's what happened. But yeah. So, in terms of, you know, the quality, I guess, of some of the books, I guess I would give King the upper hand. But that's not to say that Koontz doesn't. That's not to say that Koontz's books aren't quality either. I mean, there's a lot of good Koontz books, you know, but it does show sometimes that Koontz might have rushed a few of his books because he was writing, you know, 2 or 3 books in one year. But yeah, and I don't know, I'm really trying to think of anything else. I mean, yeah, that's really all to compare. I mean, so yeah, I mean, like I said, I feel like I enjoy both authors. I like both authors. I have a ton of each author's. I have all the Stephen King books and Dean Koontz books right here on the side. So I'm looking at all of them right now. So I mean, I enjoy both, obviously. You know, so I'm not trying to put down one or the other, you know, but this is just a topic that kind of comes up every once in a while that I've seen people kind of discuss and everything, so I kind of want to do a video on it because it's just an interesting topic to me. So yeah, overall, I feel like they're both good authors, you know, pretty different. You know, sometimes with Koontz you'll get a book that's more horror-based, but most of the time, I don't feel like Koontz's books are necessarily straight horror, you know, compared to some of Stephen King's books that he's most well known for. So, but yeah, so that's really my thoughts on the topic. So, you know, again, not trying to put down one or the other, just, you know, interesting idea, interesting discussion. So I thought I would do a video on it. So that's pretty much it. So, you know, let me know what you guys think. You know, who do you enjoy more? You know, do you have an opinion? Do you think one is better than the other? Or do you think they're both kind of, like, different, like I kind of do? But, yeah, just let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. So, yeah, that's it for this one. And I'll talk to you guys later. So, peace, and keep on reading.